Florida Today, oh my gosh, the Florida Today, the Palm Beach Post, and the Lafayette Journal and Courier. She has won numerous reporting and writing awards. And in 2017, was inducted into the Indiana Journalism Hall of Fame. She she has written several historical articles and received the Indiana Historical Society's Dorothy Ricker History Award. She received published her first book back in Indiana, which received a at first place award for the Indiana Press Women's Club. The book also placed first in 2021 Federation of Press Women's Competition. She has two achiever adult children, five college educated grandchildren, and a granddaughter.
Welcome.
Good job, Helen.
Good job, good job, good job. Hey, everybody. Did you all get bored hearing all that? I hope you didn't, but I know I did. So, I'm really happy to be here today with you. Again, my name is Eunice Trotter, and I grew up not too far from here on 20th and Columbia and 23rd and Broadway. And I was telling my co-presenter about some of my high school days. I had fights, and I went to Tech High School, and during the time that I went to Tech High School, we had Ku Klux Klan on one side of the campus waiting on us to come out, Black Panthers on the other side. And so when kids would get into fights, you know, we would have these support groups that would come in and cause even more trouble. So those are some of my memories from high school days, although I did have some other good memories too in high school. And listening to people who were old like me now was one of the things that I enjoyed doing, because those people were able to share something with me that maybe I didn't get from my family and my neighborhood. So why are you here? I am here to talk about some history you never knew about. And this is history that affects every person who is a part of not just Indianapolis, but the whole state. And not just the whole state, but the whole Midwest, the whole region. So how many of you like history? Just raise hand. Who likes history? See, most people don't like history because you think it is what?
Boring.
This is going to be history that's not going to be boring. Well, this is history. It's not going to be boring because you know why? It's going to be about every single person in here. Every single one of us has a history in our families. Now, that is one of the reasons that I like genealogy. You know, genealogy is the study of who you came from and where you came from. I focus on Black history because I'm Black, and that's what I always thought and knew, that I came from a Black family because I am Black. As I began looking more into my history, I learned some things. One of them is my grandmother is Caucasian. I made you drop your cup, huh? She looks as Caucasian as any Caucasian you want to see. My mother is a mixture of Native American and African. I learned this doing genealogy. And so when I wanted to look a little bit more into my father's family, I found out that he had come from Vincennes, Indiana. Vincennes, Indiana. Vincennes, Indiana is at the very southern part of the state, almost to Kentucky. It sits right on the Wabash River, and a little bit further down is the Ohio River that flows into the Mississippi River, which is the south. It heads south toward the southern part of the state, down near to Louisiana and all those states in that part. Well, when my father was about 13 or 14, he wanted to leave Vincennes. And I found this out because I talked to my father and I would write down the things that he would tell me. So he wanted to leave Vincennes because it was so racist. Now, you remember I told you his mother is white, his father is black. So that meant he was mulatto, he was mixed, black and white. That was a negative name that was given to people who were mixed, and sometimes it's still used today. And so it doesn't have too much to do with your skin color as much as the DNA that you have, your blood mixture, who your parents are. So he came here and he would tell us stories, and he never took us back to then since, but he would tell a story about some of our relatives, like my great-grandmother, his grandmother, and her mother, and they're different people, and I would write this stuff down. And so I got more and more curious, and then I learned that in Indiana, which was supposed to be in the north, now you all study a little bit of history, right? You know, Indiana was what, a free state, right? Is that what you were taught? We didn't have slavery here, right? You all know that? Or do you believe it did?
I believe it did.
You, okay, what about y'all? What do you think? Was it a free state or was it a slave state?
It was a free state.
Okay, why was it a free state? Huh?
But there was no slavery here.
Okay, that's what most of us get taught, that Indiana was a free state. There was no slavery here.
Well, now it is.
Well, when I started digging into records, I found out that my own great-great-great, 3 times great-grandmother had been a slave in Kentucky, and she was brought to Indiana by this man who possessed her, who had enslaved her. But because of the Indiana Old Northwest territorial laws, she was supposed to be freed when she hit Indiana soil. But she wasn't. Instead of her being freed, she was forced to sign a piece of paper, put her X on that piece of paper. She didn't know what the word said, but the word said, "You agree to work for me for free for the next 30 years. And that is called indentured servitude. Now in school you might learn that indentured servitude is a way for people to come from Europe to the United States and have their fees, their fares, or bid on the boat paid by someone that they go to work for a little while, just to work off their debt. But not for black people. They were indentured for decades here in Indiana. And that was the way that Indiana got around the ban on slavery here in Indiana. Now, even though our Constitution said there shall be neither slavery nor indentured servitude in Indiana, my great-great-great-grandmother, Mary Bateman Clark, was enslaved. Well, she got here and her enslaver sold her piece of paper to his uncle, and his uncle then had her work for him. And this went on a couple years. And so let me tell you about what was going on in Indiana also during that time. And I learned this stuff through looking at records and old newspapers and talking to people. There was problems here in Indiana during that time. Indiana needed workers. We used to grow cotton here just like the South here in Indiana. They needed people to till those fields, work those, cotton plantations. And so they needed laborers. They needed people to do the work. And so that's the reason that indentured servitude was allowed. Well, Mary Bateman Clark got fed up with it. She got some help from some white people who decided they were going to file a lawsuit to stop her from being indentured. Now, they had done it before. Many times they had filed lawsuits, but they lost them all. Well, she lost hers too at first. Then she said she was going to appeal that case to the Indiana State Supreme Court. And the state Supreme Court is like the highest court in the state. And you all heard of the U.S. Supreme Court. That's the highest court in the nation. Well, the states also have Supreme Courts. So she took her case from the regular court, just like our court downtown. She took it up to the state Supreme Court. Yeah, and she took it there and she won it. And she was awarded $24.44.5 in that lawsuit, but she never got it. Now, other people also took their indentured servant contract holders to court, and they won because of the precedent her case set. Now, let me tell you who the enslavers were. Now, this is really important, y'all. And I'm gonna say it real quietly, make sure you hear it. I'm gonna use my quiet voice. All the big shots, all the elected officials, all of the judges, the business people, the landowners, those were the people who held people enslaved. The big shots.
Oh, what's the big?
The big shots would be like the judges and the mayor and the representatives and the legislators, you know, people who had money, the people who were in power. Now, here's something else, y'all. Guess what? Just about every county in Indiana, I'm gonna say this quiet too, so every county in Indiana is named for a slaveholder, including Marion County. And the way how you find that out? Well, you find that kind of information out by researching those people. And you just go back and you go back and you go back, and then you see their wills, and you see in their wills, they willed their slaves to their family members. And that happened right here in Indiana as well. Now, I'm gonna tell you a few other things before I introduce you to Mary Bateman Clark, because she's coming on back here to talk to us a bit. I wanna talk about this thing about color, and also about history. I have been getting into DNA. Who knows what DNA is? Everybody knows DNA? Okay. Well, DNA comprises who we all are. What I have found out more and more is there's not one person on earth who has just one ethnic background. Every single one of us has a mixture of DNA. Of not skin color, but your ethnicity. For example, for my DNA, I come from Nigerian, I come from England, I come from Native Americans, all of us have about 100 places that we come from. We come from all of these different bloodlines, our DNAs. So everybody is mixed. And one of the other things that I found out too more and more is that a lot of African Americans who are from Indiana, from roots back, from lines back, typically have European and African blood. I just called some more of my cousins and they were like shocked, like, what, your cousins? Because when you do your DNA, it shows you who your bloodlines are. So I want you all to know that. And also I want you all to know that each one of you has an important family history. You gotta write it down now. And if you don't capture that history now, you might lose it forever for a lot of different reasons. And here's one of the reasons. Nowadays, when census records are collected, they don't get the information that they used to get back in 1830 and 1850. They no longer get all that information.
All boys basketball players report to the gym. All boys basketball players report to the gym.
They don't get the same information anymore. And the information that they are getting is not always correct. So they might put your race down as anything. They might put your gender down as anything. And it's because people aren't required to answer these questions, and they'll get any consequences when they don't. So they don't turn their census forms back in like they used to have to do. Nowadays they don't do it. And on top of that, many people don't keep the names of their fathers anymore. So you can't follow the family lines through the records like you used to. Many people don't get married. So that means the children could have the father's name, so right now is the time for you to collect information about your family life. So talk to your grandma, your grandpas, and your uncles and aunts, and say, where did I come from? Where are my people from? Who am I? Because your people make up you. So I'm gonna move out of the way because I hear Mary's interested in talking to you guys, and I'm gonna let her come and talk to you. I would like for you to meet my great-great-great-grandmother, Mary Bateman Clark. Sweet Lord, sweet chariot.
Oh, I forgot you guys that came in. I didn't hear nobody come in those church doors. Oh, what a mighty quiet bunch you are. Just call me here reminiscing back on my life. I do that a lot here in this church house, you know. Oh, pardon my poorly manners. The name's Mary Bateman Clark. And me and my husband Samuels is at the very beginnings of this here church. The Bethel AME Church of Vincennes, Indiana. The AME, that means African Methodist Episcopal. Okay, there was those colored Methodists up east who had a belly full of those white Methodists, and they scooted right on out of there and started their own. It's all about having pride and dignity and the freedom to be able to live like anybody else. That's why I wasn't going to be nobody's slave. No, sir. Yeah, I was born a slave in about 1795 or so in Kentucky. And I was brought up here in 1815 by Benjamin J. Harrison as an indentured servant for 30 years. And then he sold my papers to one of his kinfolks, General Washington Johnston. And, 20 years, indentured servant, indentured servitude. This fancy words to mean taking you out of slavery just to put you back in again. I put my ex on that paper to be an indentured servant to General Johnston for 20 years with the promise of food, clothing on my back, and a roof over my head. And if I had not, could have been sold back down south into slavery. Peoples ain't supposed to own other peoples. Well, to make a long tale short, I was twitched the devil in the deep blue sea on that one. But then along came this little old lawyer, Amory Kinney was his name, a son of a preacher man he was. Me and that little old lawyer put our backs and our heads together, and we took my case to court. And we sued General Johnston for my freedom. We lost that first time, but then we took it back all the way to the Indiana Supreme State Court, and we won. We won. Oh my goodness. Ooh, me and that little old lawyer we call hell, sure enough. Pardon me, Lord, pardon me. Sure enough, during this week, his life was threatened, and so was mine. Oh, some mean people back in Vincennes right then. Oh, they threatened that man and they mobs beat him. Mean people back in Vincennes back then. Mighty mean. But it was some good folk too. In fact, if it wasn't for some of the good white folk pulling their mobs off that man, he would have surely met his maker. Oh, goodness. He feared for his life and I feared for mine too. Folks didn't take too kindly to colored, uppity colors suing for their freedom. Oh no. But me and my Sam, we taught all 12 of our children to be uppity. It's all about having pride and dignity. Being able to stand up for what's right. Freedom and justice. That's right. Me and Sam have a lot of doings in this church and in this city too, and I expect my children and grandchildren to go on to do something important meaningful, just like they feisty mama. Right? Oh well. Well, now I gotta go in and get back to my Bible school lesson, but listen, you're lucky to stay as long as you need to. And if anyone asks you, you just tell them that Sister Mary Bateman Clark, wife of Samuel, brother Samuel Clark, let you in and you can pray anywhere you want to.
Okay, thank you, Mary Bateman Clark. Thank you. So, at this time, I'd like to answer any questions about anything you wanna know about genealogy or history, Indiana history. Yes, ma'am.
Did you know? Did you know you were going to be doing this job when you was our age?
You know, no, I didn't, but you know what, I like writing. And, you know, so when you're a writer, you're like, you can record the first draft of history. And so when I went on to be a newspaper writer, that showed me even more how I was able to have an impact on the stories that we read and hear about in books and newspapers every day. The people who write books and write articles in newspaper, they started just like you all did, right here in school, started writing. Next thing you know, you're writing a diary. Next thing you know, you're writing a book. Next thing you know, you're presenting your story to the classes. So, you know, I didn't know that, but that's where I started as a writer. Yes.
Did you know about your grandmother's history from your family, or did you learn that through your research?
I learned it. You know, I heard little bits and pieces about something that happened that caused a lot of problems for my family down in Vincennes, Indiana. And I mentioned earlier that my father, when he got halfway of age, because he was just 13, 14 when he took off, he didn't want to be there anymore because people down there were catching feet all the time. There was Klan there, and they used to be called white caps. And so when they would go out someplace, they would be harassed. So he left and came to Indianapolis, which by then had become a bigger city. But during the days of Mary Bateman Clark, there was no Indianapolis per se. This was all woods and wilderness. None of this, like you see today, was here. Just like you see stuff being built here now, in these fields that are all back over here, there was nothing around but woods. And so Vincennes was the big city in Indiana at that time. It had the largest black population in the state. So,
Well,
yeah,
that's
we
funny to
did.
think, because now the university is there. A lot of students go to Vincennes University.
Yes,
Um,
yes.
Not as much racial trauma as what you described, but certainly
There's still some.
Yes,
There's still
absolutely.
some. Because you know why there's still some? This is important for everybody sitting in here in the Zoom. It's still there because it gets passed on from family member to family member, from generation to generation. And that's why, at some point, for us to be a people that love one another, get along together, you gotta stop it at some point. And that's why it's important for you to have information about the history of this. Yes, ma'am.
Are there any limitations to your personal or social life because of the nature of your work?
No, you know what? I get to do probably more than I would ever get to do if I was working like a job 9 to 5. I get to go all over the state and talk and meet young people and old people and people who are rich and people who are poor. And I just get to kind of do my thing quite a bit. But no, now if I had little kids, which I did have, my children are grown now, and I have grown grandchildren, I would probably drag them around with me. So, no.
What are some of the challenges of your job?
Just having enough hours in the day. You know, I like what I do. That's why it's so important that as you go through school, that you pick something that you're going to make money doing that you like doing. Otherwise, it's gonna be a drudge getting up every day to go to work to make some money. So it's
Coach
good.
Bonds to the main office, Coach Bonds to the main office.
It's good to make money, a lot of money, but it's even better to make money doing what you love doing. So you pick something that you love doing. You never work there a day in your life. You might get tired, but yeah, you won't dread it. No, won't dread it. I know you might have parents or friends or siblings, they get up like, oh, I don't wanna go to work, I hate my job. You don't. You know, and so if you love doing your job, you won't hate it and you'll be glad that you're doing it. Yes, honey.
Why did you choose this particular career?
Because I like to write. I like writing, and writing is the doorway to a whole bunch of different jobs. You never run out of a job when you are a good writer. If you're a good writer, you can be in journalism, you can be a historian, you can be a speech writer, you can be a grant. You can do a whole bunch of things with writing, and you need writing for just about everything you do. So I like to write, and that's the reason I chose a profession that would allow me to do it. Okay.
How does your career affect the world? Will this position be around in 5 or 10, 15 years?
Yeah, what I am is a historian, and I'm also an author. See this book right here? This is a book that I wrote. And I started out writing it on pencil and paper. Then I got on my computer and started typing it out. And so this ability to write, put these words together in a book, lets me have an impact on the stories that we are told about history, particularly about our history. And no, it will never be over. You can see writing that goes back hundreds of years, things that people have written. My sister always says, if it's not in writing, she says it like this, if it ain't in writing, it ain't. If it ain't in writing, it ain't. So you have to put things in writing to give them legitimacy and credibility in life. Because if it's just in your head, guess what? Out it goes someplace into the universe. But when it's on paper, you've written it down, this is your story, then you're gonna keep it. One day you're gonna look back when you're 48 years old, you're gonna say, oh, look what I wrote. This is what was going on in my life back then.
Yeah, so, you own a historically black newspaper here in Indianapolis. And so I don't imagine that you had a lot of interracial problems. You may have, but you were a woman owning a newspaper. Did you experience any historical problems because you were a woman in that industry?
Sorta, you know, people will, of course, they're gonna try you, you know, all the time. People will try to see what your limitations are so they'll try you. And I try to stay professional when I did my business at the Recorder. I remember a day when about 8 or 9 preachers came to see me. Some of them were deceased now. But they were mad because I was allowing a column to be in the paper about church life. And they didn't like what the columnist was saying in this column. And so they all came in one day, about 8 of them big old men. Mr. Trotter, we want to talk to you. We want you to get that woman out that paper. And so I said to the pastors who I respect, I grew up in the church and I respect pastors, and I said, well, sir, this is a very popular and necessary column, and you are welcome to write an opposing opinion, you know, anytime you want to. You can have a column in the paper every week. Well, they didn't want to do that. They wanted me just to take the column out. And so that's called censorship. And so I said, no. So they said, well, if you don't take that column out of that paper, we're going to boycott your paper. We're going to tell our parishioners not to buy your paper. Then I got mad. I said, you know what, sirs? You're going to help my paper. Because the minute that you tell them not to buy it, they're gonna buy it even more.
Yes,
Help yourself.
yes.
And so they went away and we didn't have any more problems, and some of them are still alive today, and, you know, we're friends now. But we were friends then. It was just that they wanted me to do something I didn't wanna do, and I wasn't going to do.
It sounds very similar to what's going on right now, with politicians who want to, prevent having history, black history in the schools, teaching the truth. They want that not to be the case, and so we have all this debate that's going on this very day now, even, in our state house, so. We'll
Well,
see how it
Indiana
turns out.
has a very, very interesting history. Indiana's history is often, to me, based on contradictions. And so it's very founding, like I told you, our state constitution said there shall be neither slavery nor indentured servitude, did it anyway. With this debate that's going on now about teaching black history, I want us to say this. First, black history is not black history, it's just part of history. It's part of history. And the lawsuit that I told you guys about is not a black lawsuit, it's a lawsuit that stopped a practice in this state that never should have existed in the first place. Because our Constitution, which they created, and when I say they, I mean the legislatures, they created, but they turned around and violated. So, you know, I look at some pictures from way back when people were getting lynched. And I see all these little kids standing around, little white kids, and they are traumatized by this. Just think about this, y'all. Just think, what would you do if you were a little kid? Not even a little kid, you guys are teenagers now, right? Mm-hmm. So say today you walked out that door and you saw this man hanging from a tree with a rope around his neck and his eyes bulging.
Well, honestly,
Dead. And a big crowd standing around. Cheering, yay! Well, but see, no, now let me say this right here. Because see, you see how you reacted? White folks doing that? That is the fear that legislators now have. That you somehow will feel responsible for that. And that will make you feel bad. See, and you're saying it too. No, it's not your responsibility. And it's not your responsibility. But what you gotta do is make sure that you don't become a person who does that. That's why it's important to know this history. Because these people during that time had gotten so numb and used to this happening, it was like going to a picnic. It didn't matter. Didn't matter. So these people had been conditioned. You all know what that means, conditioned? Like, you know, when you condition a thing, you become accustomed to it. It makes you used to it. And so it didn't bother them like that. It made them numb. So yeah, I think that what they're doing is an injustice. It's going to deprive a lot of young people from knowledge that they need to have to function in this world today. And it's just very frightening that it's a possibility that will happen. Yes.
What project did or do you consider a classic war story? Why was it so difficult, and what would you do differently now?
A classic what story?
War story?
Classic war story? Well, I mean, there's a lot of war stories. You know, I think about the Civil War. You all know about the Civil War? Everybody know about the Civil War? That's when the North and the South, the Northern Continental States and the Southern Continental States and the Northern Union States had a war. Thousands of American people died in that war. Now, they will tell you that war was about slavery. That was one element of that war. That war was about money, like a lot of things. They say money is the root of all evil. That war was in determining whether or not the South and the North could be on equal playing ground when competing in the economy. Because the North felt like the South had an unfair advantage because they had all this free labor. Because they had slaves, openly. And then the North didn't have slaves openly and couldn't do the same way that the South did. So there became a conflict over that in the Congress, over different laws, over different, just a whole bunch of different things. So to me, the Civil War was the most horrific war because so many American people died needlessly. Brothers were against brothers because sometimes families, you know, members moved north, some stayed south. So you had brothers against brothers, you know, sisters too, against, you know, so that was the war that I thought was the worst. Yes.
How would you advise me to plan for my future?
Well, I would say that what do you like? What do you like to do? What's the best thing you like? You like
reading?
No.
What do you like to draw? What do you like to cook? Who's the one who likes to cook?
I thought she liked drawing.
You're an artist? You like drawing?
She just do that.
Oh, you just do this. Okay. Look at that. That's very good. My partner here is also an artist. You need to talk to her before she leaves. There are so many jobs that you can get and things you can do being an artist. You can be a fashion artist. You can be one who does mechanical things. You can do landscapes. You can work for somebody or you can work for yourself. Yeah. You should go to the Harrison Center, which is on the corner of 15th and Delaware. Don't cost you nothing. Just walk around and look at the art. They have programs for high school students. Check it out. Check it out. Okay?
They both draw.
Oh, you all both draw. Well, be sure to talk to that lady right there, 'cause she's a good artist.
Yeah, artist right there too.
Oh, man.
Very
You know what? That is so good, you guys, you know?
Only know how to draw a flaming skull.
I can't draw a straight line.
Only know how to draw a flaming skull. That's the only thing I can do.
I can't draw nothing.
Yeah, so you go ahead and you pursue that. Remember I said, do what you love. You can make money doing it.
What would you say was the most interesting story or situation that happened during the time that you owned the recorder?
Boy, there were lots of stories. I'm gonna tell you about one funny thing that happened. The recorder in all newspapers used to be considered public spaces. So that meant that people could just drop in, they would tell you something they wanted you to know, tell you about some gossip. They'd bother you all day long with stuff coming in, you know. And so there was this one guy who, he was always coming in, because he wanted to run for political office, and he did a few times. He didn't win, but he was always running, you know. And so he used to bug me all the time when I'd be really busy, and here he come wanting to talk. So, okay, I'm talking. Well, this time he came in, he wanted me to help him in a fundraiser. We were raising money for a charity. He wanted me to help him. And what it meant is they would build a little fake jail, and then they would have you sit in this little fake jail downtown at this office, United Way office. And you had to call all your friends to raise $500 before they would release you from jail. I didn't have time for that. It was a press day. He just insisted. And I told him, no. And so next thing I look up, here come two people to give me a ride to this jail. I'm like, oh Lord. So I'm busy. So I had to
take you to jail.
Yeah, so okay, I go down to the fake jail. And I'm sitting there, I had to spend, I don't know, 2-3 hours calling people till I got $500 worth of pledges. People promising they're gonna give so much money to the United Way. So I got with my staff, we're gonna get him back. So, you know, like I told you, newspapers were public places where people would stop in all the time. So we knew cops. So I asked a couple of my cop friends if they would do a little trick on this man with me. And so they said, yeah, I'll do that trick on him. So he came in and I called him up, he's here. So I told him what to do. So they came into the office while he was sitting there burning up our time. And they said, are you, Mr. Burnett? I said, yes. He says, stand up, sir. Put your hands behind your back. He said, what for? He said, there's a warrant for your arrest for child support. Now, I knew that he had been divorced, and I knew he was paying child support, and I just guessed he might be behind, you know. So he said, what? He said, I'm not behind child support. I was ready to just bust out laughing. His face was like, no, no. He handcuffed him and walked them down the steps to the police car, the real police car. And so then I had our photographer take pictures of him when he was getting in the car. And then when he sat down, we told him, trick, you know.
That is not funny.
That happened like 25 years ago. I see him now. He tells everybody that story. Do you know what she did to me? So yeah, that was a funny thing that happened. Yeah, but we had all kind of things going on that case. All kinds of things. And I'm sure they still go on today. You know. So anyone else have any other questions? Yes, huh?
Yes, your question. Here, it's an easier question.
Okay. What is the most satisfying thing about a job, money, vacation, coworkers, retirement, or work?
What'd you say? What'd you say? What?
What is the most satisfying thing about job, money, vacation, coworkers, retirement, or work?
What's the most fun thing? Job, money,
Coworkers. Most important.
in my work? The work. That's what's most important, because you gotta like what you're doing, right? Because you're gonna be doing it for 30, 40 years, right? So you have to like what you're doing. So the work is the most important thing. Money, you know, you're gonna make money. You're gonna have to deal with coworkers, all kind of coworkers all the time, but you know, the work that you do is the most important thing. So you all want to ask some questions about how to record your history or really that kind of thing that you will take with you for the rest of your life.
We kind of talked about doing that as a Black History project. I don't think we actually chose that, but the teacher that runs this particular history class, that's what she's doing in summer.
That's seventh graders, not eighth graders.
Now, some of our students have already done the first step, which I have them to interview their parents.
That's good.
And then the next step is going to be if they interview someone that is further reached, grandparents or beyond, so that they can begin to learn their history. That's why I asked the question about, did you already know your grandmother's story, or did you learn about it? And it's, you know, I love genealogy.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a person in our family, and you learn so many things. And I'm sad to hear that people are falsifying and not really doing their census reports, because that's how I learned a lot about our family, was through the census reports.
Yes.
And matching that up with military records and, you know, tax records and, military service records and all of that. So.
Absolutely, absolutely. I wanted to just give a few minutes to my partner here, because she is a performing artist, and some of you guys might be interested in the performing arts. She's also a writer and a poet. I don't get into writing poetry, but she's a really good poet. She's gonna be doing some work for several organizations here in the city, poetry work. So do you wanna say anything? Yeah. I know I'm blindsiding you here, but I know you can roll with the flow.
I'm gonna get out of character here, okay?
You get out.
Yes, ma'am. I'm Marlon G. So it's just been an honor to be able to be her great grandmother. And I am a poet. I'm a comedian. I'm a playwright. I'm an actress. I'm a director. I'm a visual artist. That's why I'm telling you, keep hope alive. Stay encouraging that. Now's the time right now I can tell y'all as an artist is just being grown, period. Ain't just about being grown. Now's the time right now that if you have a gift, if you have something, if you have a dream, this is the time to start working on it. This is the time to really believe in yourself and start working towards those things early that you want to do. Okay? Be your own cheerleader. Stay prayed up. You know, you gotta have a relationship with the Most High. I don't know what nobody's relationship is, but it is from God that we given our gifts, and so I believe in serving that back. So, as an artist, as your hands, ask God to bless your hands. Ask God to bless your minds. Ask God to bless your projects. There's nothing wrong. That's what you should be doing. I don't know what else to say, but
That's some pretty questions.
any questions?
Got some artists.
Give us the poem.
Huh?
The poem.
Give a poem? Oh, wow.
Are you with Freetown Village?
I have worked with Freetown Village. I play these little lady roles well. I've been mother and do it. I've been mother and do it with Freetown Village since 2015, 2016. So I'm the root woman, so I play that role. I am a poet. I was also with Cafe Kumba for many years. So I was at one point vice president of Cafe Kumba. I do stand-up comedy. Yay, I like that. See, you know, you get to act a fool. So that's why I'm telling y'all, the things that y'all do right now that somebody may think is, or maybe sometimes you don't think is nothing. If it's a God-given talent, I like to make people laugh. I like to heal people. I like people to smile. So I like to do that through my poetry. Now, as far as a poem, you'll put me on the spot. Now, I don't have nothing to do. It's for these children, so kids right now. That's a whole nother set.
Yeah.
But, I got something. I will share something. Let me see. I also am the president of Project Wings, which is a mental and spiritual health and wellness. And so we do have youth activities. We do coping skills workshops. So I tell you guys, another of the things that happens with your art, your drawing, your painting, your writing, all of that, those are coping skills. Journaling, it really is important. Like Miss, she recorded her history, but even if you don't do your history, journal your own history. Journal how you've overcome something. You'd be surprised 5-10 years from now, that moment when you think you can't get through something or you're going through something, and then you see what you've been brought through, it's life-changing. It really is. So those are coping skills though, but I do have a poem. I guess I can kind of do. I wrote this poem is called Love Still Lives, because I know like this is during the time during COVID, some of us have lost people. And you know, y'all people too, y'all have y'all's feelings too. And so, it's all of that. So this is how I use my coping skills. Oh Lord, that was wrong there, but let me see. I'm being put on the spot. Well, what's going on with y'all today, though? How y'all doing? Good. Amen. That's right. Stay encouraged, and whatever you do, stay encouraged. If I can see this. This is called Love Still Lives On. And I wrote this during the time of some great loss. So I just want to impart this upon y'all. There are promises that surpasses this world, often filled with things in life we can't comprehend. Yet when we take a moment to be still and believe, there is a song that's being played on the wind. When the breeze caresses your tear-streaked face, when you grieve in despair that they're gone, we must remember that love never dies. In the light and in our heart, love still lives on. When the raindrops fall and mingle with tears, when the sun rises and sets on days hard and long, allow the rays of God's love and life to engulf you, for in God's embrace is proof that love still lives on. That random butterfly or strange cloud in the sky, that whisper or suddenly you hear that special song. Our loved ones are always near and with us, giving us signs that their love still lives on. To grieve is human, and we know that this process is never a straight line. There are moments when you will laugh and cry, and there are moments when you may feel out of your mind. Beloveds, feel what you feel when you feel it. For each of us will grieve in different ways. Yet be compassionate to others and yourself. It's a path that we all have to take. Allow your village of lights to surround and lift you. May the Lord comfort your souls all along. For the word says, I will give everlasting life. And that's a promise from God that love still lives on. So fill your spirit with affirmations and memories. Know that in the midst of life's storms, you are never alone. May God strengthen you always with heavenly kisses. A reminder that love never dies when love still lives on. So just stay encouraged. Stay encouraged. That's all I got to say. Like, what?
You make us laugh.
You coming? Oh, yeah, I do. There's some clean coming in there. You know what I mean? You too young to know about Crisco oil. You see what I'm saying? When Crisco oil was both what you fried chicken in, it was a hair grease and it was lotion. They don't know. They don't know. See, I can't take them. I can't take them, man. They don't know that. Man. You don't know about none of that. Y'all don't know about when the greases was set aside and you know there was grease that you have fried the chicken in, right? There was fish grease.
Yep.
Sometimes if you was up in it, you had some sausage grease.
Right.
That was all just the pork grease. You see what I'm saying? You had your bacon grease. Okay? I was fine. My first beef with my grandmother was when we ran out of the Crisco. And you didn't walk out the house ashy.
Oh, no.
That was a sin. That was a sin. You didn't walk out that house dirty and ashy.
Right.
She lined me up. She said, well, you ain't going out here ashy. What grease you want to put on today? You know what I'm saying? Had me smelling like Joe Bacon. All the way from School 60. Do you hear what I'm saying? In the summer. Dogs and cats following me.
And in the wintertime, you didn't get cold either.
I never. Here, wait a minute. I said, my grandmother sure don't like me. I'm coming home from School 60 smelling like Joe Bacon. She said, girl, that was some good Joe Bacon.
Oh, that's funny.
No, I just wish next time I'm gonna I need to, y'all don't stop putting the chicken grease on. She keep licking the parts of my head. Well,
Lord Jesus.
take a wet night in a biscuit next time. You gotta see on your report card. You might want to do something about it. You know what I mean? No, my grandmother definitely should. My grandmother should have went to jail. You know, she would go in that store and the sun would be going down when she come out. They should have went to jail. They go to jail now, leaving them babies in the car. Now you babies is soft now. We had whole lives going on in the car while they was in the store, okay? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Probably selling some brownies out the windows. You know what I mean? They in there spending money. We out here making money. They should have went to jail. They should have went to jail. No, but just a little taste, okay?
Oh, that's funny.
All right.
Thank you very much. You all have been a great audience. We've had a good time. Come on, my co-partner, let's take a little quick bow here. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
It was fun, y'all. Hope to see you all doing great things.
Yes.
Looking for you artists and you writers and you plumbers and you doctors and lawyers.
There they
Go.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank